Hello everyone, this is StrawberryShorty here with a review of Raging Loop, a visual novel, kind of a horror mystery novel that I played for the Switch Lite. So this game had been on my wish list for a while, but I actually didn't really know much about it initially. And there is one element of the plot I'm going to save for the very end. I think it's generally advertised with the game, but it's just one of those plot points where I think it's more interesting if you go into the game not knowing it. So just in case you want to skip over that, I'm going to talk about it right before the spoiler section. So, it's about a young man named Haruaki who just had a really bad breakup and is just speeding around on his motorcycle trying to forget about everything. And he ends up crashing and finds himself in the isolated mountain village of Yasumizu, where he quickly gets caught up in a rather horrifying incident. And people begin dying, and they have to try and figure out who did it and why. So, to start with, I guess I'll talk about the graphics. I wasn't really crazy about the visuals in this game. The characters, most of them are designed rather blandly. I mean, they look like normal people, to be fair, but it didn't really appeal to me. And, I didn't really like the look of most of the CGs. There was also this really weird thing they did with backgrounds. Where, because, normally in a visual novel, if you're in a room, the background will be that room. In Raging Loop, the background is like the upper left corner of a window. And it's just like, why is this the background? So it makes it really hard to tell what any place looks like. And the visuals outside aren't particularly interesting either. And then they bring in this fog, and it's so thick that you can't see basically anything behind the characters. Which, I mean, it's supposed to be that thick, but from a visual standpoint, it doesn't look that great. So, definitely was not a big fan of the visuals. The other issue I had was the main gameplay. This is a visual novel where there are choices you have to make occasionally. And the game thankfully has a flowchart so you can jump around if you run into any problems, and it has an autosave feature and all that. But the choices are generally handled in one of two ways. Some of the choices will be locked. They try to do what Virtue's Last Reward did, if you're a fan of the Zero Escape series, where every so often you'll just get kind of cut off and you can't go any further because you don't know a thing or whatever. And that's fine, but where Virtue's Last Reward would do it just during the story, Raging Loop does it with the choices. So you'll get two choices, and it's either option A or something that's locked and you can't see what that locked option is. And it's not really fun in a choice-based game when you get two options and you can't access one of them. Another thing that will commonly happen is you'll get, there's a moment in the game where it's like, okay, do you want to do this thing or do you want to not do this thing? And it's like, okay, I'm going to not do this thing. And within a minute, I get killed. So it's like, okay, go back and this time do the thing. And then a minute after doing the thing, you get another choice. A or B. It's like, okay, I'll pick B. Within a minute, dead. Go back and pick A. This is how every choice in the game pretty much works. If you're presented with two choices or even more choices, one will lead to death very quickly and you're forced to go back and pick the other choice. Many of the locked choices, you will pick the unlocked choice, die, get a key from your death, and then go back and unlock the other choice. There are some ones that stay locked longer, but that's how it is, and it ends up making the game feel really, really linear. I think I overall would have enjoyed this game more if you could have, could have moved a bit more freely instead of just kind of being railroaded into this one path. And the flowchart does at least do a good job of keeping track of what keys you have and where the locks are, and they're all numbered and stuff. But and if you die, you have to die to get any keys. Not all deaths will get you a key, but some will. And when you die, you get a hint corner that you can do, where this little sheep character will basically help you out, and that is very useful. Like, you'll always know what to do. Even if you've like forgotten something, it's very helpful to remind you of where you should go next. But yeah, it's overall a very linear game. The characters really, really like there's a range here. Like the main character, I think, is extremely interesting. Some people are bound to hate him, but he's undeniably a very unique visual novel protagonist, especially in that he is extremely intelligent. Like there'll be times when a thing will happen and you'll be like, oh, it means this, and he will realize it. And that's nice. It's refreshing to have a protagonist in a mystery game that is smart. He's also somewhat funny and maybe a little mean. The other characters, by the end of it, I did like most of them. I just feel like a lot of them don't really get proper time to develop. And like, there are a few characters that are like the stars of the show. And it feels like all the other characters might as well just be background characters. They don't really get to do too much of anything. I guess we might as well talk briefly about the ending, because there are people that hate this ending. And I didn't actually dislike it. I do think it was a little too much exposition. There's some stuff in the endings and the extras that are they feel a bit more meant for Japanese people, like little like kanji word tricks or stuff like that, you know? And like that's stuff that people that don't know the language would pick up on. And I mean, the game does explain it, but it still ends up being really confusing. At least it was for me. So this game also has in terms of the extras, there's Revelations mode, where after you beat the game and you get the true ending, you can replay the game, only there will be added dialogue that is bordered in red, and it basically kind of, it will elaborate on different things. Like, you'll get to see different characters' thoughts, you'll get to see some new scenes, and it can actually be pretty informative. Some of it's funny. There's a couple new endings thrown in there. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, though, because on one hand, if you wait too long to replay it, you might forget a lot of stuff. Like, I know that probably doesn't sound like it makes sense since you're replaying the game, but like, it feels like it's something you should that you should experience right after beating the game to solve these extra mysteries and stuff. But when you do that, you're basically replaying the whole game, and like, I skipped most of the red dialogue already, but then you're kind of skipping what leads up to the new dialogue. I didn't have too many problems with that, but I know a lot of people did not bother with Revelations mode. And then there's a bunch of extra chapters which basically serve as epilogues for certain characters. I was kind of bummed that certain characters didn't really get any screen time for these. There's like, I think 5. One is super informative. The rest are mostly just like, what are these characters up to? What will their futures hold? There was the one I didn't like all that much. I thought it was a little boring, but I thought the others were fairly interesting. And it was kind of nice to see the different relationships between certain characters. So like, I have so many complicated feelings about this game. Like, I was about to jump into overall thoughts, but there was a graphics thing I forgot to mention. One other issue I had with the graphics is when a character dies, you're not really shown it. You're shown like a black and red image that's almost censored. Like, the images are kind of freaky looking, but you're rarely actually seeing anything. You'll like see a black hand lying on a red background, and it's like, oh no, so-and-so is dead. And it's like, this isn't really a good way to do death scenes. It's kind of boring. I guess with some of the deaths that happen, you wouldn't really be able to show pictures, but like even like a close-up of the victim's actual hand, or their, I don't know, their wide open eye filled with terror or something would be better than just these black and red images. There was one I thought was effective. But then they reuse these images throughout the game, even if it's a different character that's dead. So that doesn't, like, it really kind of makes them lose even more of the impact. So yeah. But anyway, like, overall, I did like this game. I don't regret playing it. It was pretty intriguing. I definitely think it could have explained some things better, because there were definitely a lot of parts that were super confusing. And I wish certain characters got more screen time, but if you're in to, like, murder mysteries, it might be worth checking out. It's like Diet Higurashi, basically. Because it really needed what Higurashi had, just a lot of nice scenes with people interacting and getting along, so we could grow even more attached to the characters. But, so before I jump into the spoiler section, I will talk about the one plot aspect that I think you're better off going in blind, which is basically this is a play on the party game Werewolf, also known as Mafia. Some of you may be more familiar with it as Town of Salem. But basically the idea that one or two people in a group are villains and everyone else are the good guys. And basically you're put into a setup where at night the wolves will kill, and during the day everyone meets up and tries to vote on who to lynch in an effort to get rid of the wolves. Like, it's not really a spoiler, but I do think it's something that's more interesting if you don't know it going in. Because I think, like, slowly realizing that that the game is basically a giant game of werewolf is kind of cool. I totally forgot to mention this earlier, but I'll throw it in now. For people that have read the Nintendo Life review, and I recommend you don't because it has some spoilery images, it makes a comment about the game being offensive in a certain area, and I'm just going to say that to avoid even touching upon anything spoilery. If you have read the review, that is wrong. Like, not even if you squint. I don't know why they claimed that, but yeah, so don't be deterred, and don't go rushing out to read that review if you haven't, because again, it's spoilery in terms of the images. So speaking of spoilers, let's move on to the spoiler section. So yeah, like, the whole thing with trying to explain things in mundane ways, like, I thought that was interesting, but then they also made everything kind of related to God too. And like that's not even then that's not necessarily like a bad reveal, having just like the reveal be like everything was mundane. Oh, but actually there is a God element. But it's not really handled that way, where like the God reveal is a surprise. So it just ends up kind of feeling like really weird and like mishmashed together. Like, a lot of people did complain about Revelations mode and Extra mode revealing too much of the main story. And I get where they're coming from, but Extra mode is basically a follow-up. Like, they're epilogues. And you could have tacked them onto the main game, but I don't think that would have flowed really well. So I can't really say anything about the extra. I don't feel that the extras were wrong. I think it's fine to say play those, especially since they're included in the game. It's not like you have to buy them separately. If you had to buy them separately, that would be an issue. Although it does kind of feel like they're hinting at a lot of stuff that's beyond this game, like with the pasture and Mako. I know that this game does have a sequel called, I think, Death Match Love Comedy. It was released a while ago, but it did, like, I think recently get ported to the Switch, so maybe we'll get an English localization of that sometime soon. But yeah, I can understand people being frustrated that there's this kind of hint at a bigger conspiracy that never gets explored. And then, yeah, Revelations mode, a lot of people don't really want to replay through the game, but you do learn some interesting stuff about, like one nice thing is you really kind of come to understand how Rikako's power works. Also, the scene where Mako learns she's the Badger is really funny, because they do the whole illusion with the wolf guys talking in like the old English or whatever, and Mako is like 4, so she doesn't understand a word they're saying, so they have to break character. But it was like really messed up that the Miguruma or whatever, that they were doing that. Like, oh yeah, let's just have the people massacre each other. And in this case, they didn't even evacuate the women and children. And we learn in Revelations mode that that's because there wouldn't have been enough people. It would have been like just Konzo, Takumi, and if you include the outsiders, Haruaki and Hashimoto. Oh yeah, an old wolf guy, so there'd be like 5 people. But it's still pretty messed up to have a killing game where you got all these children present. And like one's like 4. I like, you could have just got along with the people, you know, just been nice to them. Uh, Favorite character was Nosato. I think he kind of came around to be a good guy. And I like that he's taking care of Rikako, even though she's, you know, crazy. She gets even weirder after beating the game. I didn't like that the main game just kind of ignored Mako, and we just got no real closure on her whatsoever. Even with the extras, we still don't get too much in regards to closure. She's just out there somewhere. Oh, and the whole thing with the church seems messed up. Like, they feel like they killed a bunch of innocent people. I think that was stated. That sucks. Also, Yamawaki is probably the most pointless character. Like, I saw like a character tier list on like the visual novels subreddit, and it was something like, why are you even in this game? She was at like the bottom tier. And I feel bad for her, but it's basically the truth. She has no role in the actual story. Also, kind of a side note, but anyone else super annoyed that they didn't give us anything with Takumi and Kaori? Like, just show us them getting married. Like, yes, the Yasunaga does kind of hint that they're thinking about it, but like, we beat the whole game. Just let us see them hook up already. I also feel bad for Yoshi, Yasunaga's brother, because like, I don't think he even gets mentioned in the extra chapters. Like, the other characters are shown or mentioned, but he's just like, I don't think he gets mentioned at all. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. I mean, you exist, but yeah, that was just overwhelmingly, I wish we got more character moments. Like in how games like Ace Attorney or Danganronpa, people get to have like these cool moments or do these cool things, and I don't feel like that really happened here outside of like the main cast. Also, some of the violence in this game was just really surprising. Like, even with the whole thing about like they were being manipulated, their faith was being manipulated, some of these murders were really brutal, and it's like, why did you do this? Like, why did you go so over the top with it? Was that really necessary? I also thought when they talked about the anesthesia and how you could possibly not wake up from it, I thought that was going to turn out to be how we died as Haruaki that one time, when like the spider totally should have protected us, but they didn't. But that ended up not being the case. So I was kind of bummed about that. What was I say? I liked Mochi for how strange he was. Like, more like in spite of how strange he was, because some of the stuff he did and said was not very cool, but I liked his facial animations and his voice. And he looks super cute in a dress. I'm a little jealous. What should we talk about? I liked God's voice. I also like the drawing of the little wolf family on the picture they show of the religion. But this has been a very random spoilery section. Like, I just finally finished the last extra chapter last night, so I wanted to get this review done. But I probably should have outlined this one better. It ended up being a little chaotic. So, is there anything else I can really say? Don't really think so. Like, I don't regret buying it. Wish they'd done some things better. Hope we get the sort of sequel, which I believe Mako is in. So I think that will be all for this review. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye!